Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And we are very excited to showcase this next guest here on our network, so sit back, strap in, and get ready for a wonderful ride. And on the line with us today, we have Ron and Kathy Kempton. We're going to be discussing Ron's fantastic book, Child of the Heart, A Man's Struggle to Regain His Inner Child. Available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And guys, listen, Ron and Kathy were brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best publishers in the business. Sweet Spire Literature Management. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give. Contact Sweet Spire so that they can move the book for you. And you can find out more information on their fantastic company at sweetspireliterature.com. And people, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Ron and Kathy both here on the line with us today. Now, the moment you go to his Amazon page, you go to his Barnes & Noble page, you start to do any research on his book, Child of the Heart, you instantly understand what we're going to be discussing. Now, the subject matter is heavy, okay? I mean, it's tough. And as I was researching and I was looking up information on the book, the question that kept resonating in my mind is when, if ever, do we lose that inner child? Now, I say if ever kind of half-heartedly because I think just normally as life progresses and as the adversity and the daunting day-to-day tasks just continue to pile up, I think naturally you start to lose that inner child, or they become harder to find. And it was something that really resonated with me. Just that title in and of itself, in the thoughts that came to my mind. And then as I started to do the research on the book and I understood more about Ron's background and his own adversity and his own battle with anxiety that he dealt with and his journey to regain, that, like that subtitle says, a man's struggle to regain his inner child. Well, in this narrative, we're going to follow him on that journey. We're going to figure out his process and what he did. And what I love so much about memoirs, guys, and I've mentioned it in the past, I'm going to say it again. What's great about it is we know that through age, through experience, comes wisdom. Well, the great thing about reading a memoir, it doesn't always have to be your experience that wisdom is derived from. You're able to take a fantastic book like this that Ron has comprised, and you're able to learn from his experience. And you may not be able to relate to every single circumstance, but I promise you that underlying message is going to be something that you can take and you can implement into your day-to-day lives and grow and become better individuals because of it. And Ron is the expert, okay? Kathy, right there by his side, they're going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Ron, Kathy, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you both for being guests with us today. How are you?
Oh, thank you. It's great to join you. I'm great. I'm fine. I'm really enjoying this.
Wonderful. Kathy, how you doing today?
Pretty good. Yeah.
There it is. Woman of few words. I like it, right? She's like, let's get down to brass tacks. I like it. You know, guys, thank you again, both of you, for being guests here. And again, not only are we looking forward to having another book to add to the shelf, but also the words of wisdom that we're going to be able to receive from you within this short interview, but also when our readers go and pick up the book. What you've embarked upon here, Ron, is something profound and something that we all need, especially, listen, man, given the past 2 years that we've all experienced with this pandemic, who isn't feeling anxious right now?
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, this could not have come at a better time, and we truly appreciate that. Ron, I know we have so much information to cover, but let's hold off before jumping into the book. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
I grew up on a street of all boys. The whole neighborhood all around were all little boys. Mm-hmm. And everything we did was a club. Well, it may be hard to understand at this point in time, but when the press and the world found out the Beatles wrote and performed their own songs, it was just a big story. Everybody talked about it all the time. Mm-hmm. So since everything we did was clubs, bike clubs, skateboard clubs, all that, we decided to have a songwriting club. Well, I found I had a bit of a propensity for writing, and I also found out that it was very cathartic, and I enjoyed it. I've written stuff since I was 8 years old.
Wow. There it is. So writing has always been a part of you, right? Yeah. Whether you knew it or not, this was something that you were just born to do, right? You had that from an early age. I love it. Now, in addition to your own personal experience, and I promise we'll get to the book, but in addition to your own personal experience, because I believe that the book, and this is my assumption, so excuse my assuming here, but did this book initially start as maybe almost a cathartic experience for you, where you were kind of going through the motions yourself, and it started as a self-help thing for you?
Yes.
Talk to us about that inspiration on A, why you began that journey for yourself, and then B, what made you feel that the words you were putting on the page would be beneficial for others that picked it up as well?
I was encouraged to read a book called The Anxiety Phobia Workbook. And it encouraged, in one section, the reader to write a letter to your inner child. And the book you're holding, that we're talking about, is the result of that letter. I wasn't real well in 2000, so I just kept writing and writing, and I was metaphorically and with a lot of colorful characterizations explaining what I was going through and how it felt. So I'm sorry, the second question I forgot.
Yeah, it was really just now, Lee, so we know what inspired you to embark upon the journey for yourself. Why didn't it end there? I mean, you published the book, you put it out for the public. So what did you see that made you feel the words it would have been selfish for you to keep this to yourself, and the words that you were putting on the page had to go out to the public. Talk to us about that.
Our friend, my mentor and supporter, I met her name's Liz Chiarelli, and I met her at producer Gary Gray's house. I gave her a copy of the manuscript. That manuscript sat around in our lives for about 10 years. And she read it when she was flying back to Italy, her home. She wrote me and she said, "You're going to publish this." And so I did. I probably would have never published it unless she said, "This needs to be published. It's excellent. It should be a movie." I just loved it, and I want other people to read it.
Do you mind if I interject just a little here?
Yeah, please.
Just to give our readers an idea of how this worked. Ron took the symptoms of anxiety disorder and personified them into characters. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the characters, but the first two are my favorites. They're little guys that sit on the protagonist's shoulders, one on each side, and they're constantly arguing. One of them is named Wart, and the other one is named Mort. Wart is the one who worries all the time about everything, and Mort is constantly predicting catastrophe. Mm-hmm. And those are just the first two characters that fall into the story.
I love that. I absolutely, listen, that is so creative in the way that you've configured this, Ron. Listen, without further ado, let's jump right in, okay? Child of the Heart. Tell us a little bit more about your book, please.
I wrote it in my room in 2000. Mm-hmm. I was explaining how I was feeling and doing it in a colorful, sort of fantastic way, I guess. It's a really great story. A lot of people will go buy books and they're technical or they're self-help books.
Right.
This is a book about anxiety disorder from someone who has it and from the inside. I wrote from the inside of my heart and mind what I was feeling and what I was going through and how I conquered that period of time and got back to just living my life the best I could. Mm-hmm. So it's a book about someone struggling through anxiety disorder and all its symptoms and coming out successful. It has a happy ending.
And it's a fun read. Everyone who's read it says so.
Yeah, it really is. It's humorous and it's kind of scary, and there's just a lot of stuff in it that's
just like life.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Ron, a word that you said that really continues to stand out. You said, you're talking about what you were feeling inside, right? And inside resonates because another thing that I was thinking about when I was researching your book is it reminds me similarly to the Disney Pixar movie that came out, I don't know, within the past 10 years, called Inside Out, where basically you are now living inside someone's mind and you see these embodiments of emotions, right? And how they all play out with one another. And of course, they're doing it in a very creative and fun way, which sounds very similar to what you're talking about here. You know, and I love, because again, it's such a creative way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember I had written that book long before Disney came out with that movie, and I was slightly disgruntled, like, hey, somebody got my idea.
They took your idea. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm sure they didn't do it. There's a plethora of creative people there.
Right.
But it has the same idea. You're looking at something that you might be suffering from or that you've heard about from the inside of someone else's heart and mind.
Right. You know, Ron, question for you, and really a curiosity for myself. While you were going through in this process and you were putting these characters together that embodied your emotions, was this something that you were doing solely for the entertainment of the narrative that you were creating? Or did you find that actually putting or creating that these emotions had a physical embodiment, right? They're characters now. Was that in any way helpful towards you in your process?
Well, yes. Anxiety disorder is not funny. We have just experienced a very sad loss in Naomi Judd, who suffered desperately from anxiety and depression. And there's people everywhere who suffer from this. Absolutely. It's quite common. I think they just get to the point, and I know I did, where the voices and the dialogue inside is all negative. And it's really teaches you, as you go through the book, how to get past that. I don't have to think that way. With faith, logic, love, and reason, I can be a whole person and live my life the way I want to.
And they are characters too in the book.
Right.
Yes, those attributes are characters in the book.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Guys, again, here on the line with Ron and Kathy Kempton. We're discussing Ron's fantastic book, Child of the Heart, A Man's Struggle to Regain His Inner Child. Available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. Ron, probably one of the most important questions that I have asked today, I'm going to embark upon now. And it is almost unfair in a sense because it's so broad. So please entertain me and my listening audience and try to answer this as best as you can. Anxiety on the spectrum of why people become anxious varies tremendously, right? So of course it's not a one shoe fits all type of deal. But speaking from your own experience, Ron, for any listeners out there right now that is also battling their own anxiety, what are some words of wisdom that you can relate to them in this moment of tribulation?
Please get help. There's psychologists and psychiatrists. The difference is the psychiatrist can prescribe medication.
Right.
This is important. It's important to recognize in yourself panic attacks are not funny. They're terrifying. And all of a sudden you're just deeply scared in a situation where there's nothing to be afraid of. So if you're suffering from that or any other form of depression, mental or emotional illness, which comes up in every book and story I write, then get help. Right. Don't be afraid of it. Talk to somebody.
Ron, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing the book? Or maybe highlight is the wrong word. What was something that surprised you along this journey that you weren't expecting before you began on it?
It actually helped me writing it. I felt good after I wrote it. I took all that stuff that was in my head and my heart, and I put it out here so it was at a different place. Mm-hmm. And it does have humor. I'm not laughing at myself or anyone else. Those things that go in your head sometimes are absurd and ridiculous. They're not things to be afraid of. But I also felt really incredible when I held up a book with my name on it and knew that was my story, that I wrote that.
Absolutely.
I'd like to mention, too, that there's passages of poetry in the book that are really nice, enjoyable, and add to the narrative. And I know that people will enjoy the poetry, too, because I think more than anything, Ron is a poet. He's a songwriter and a musician, and I would say a poet.
Man of many talents, right? An artist through and through. I absolutely love it. That's fantastic. I wish I would have known that there was poetry involved. I would have had you set some aside so that you can read from. But listen, it's not a problem, guys, because Amazon and Barnes & Noble is where you have to go. And when you purchase the book, you got all that poetry to yourself anyway. So you don't need us to read it for you here. I absolutely love it. Thank you very much, Kathy, for inputting that. I appreciate it. You know, Ron, as we start to close out of this fantastic interview, man, and again, I appreciate everything that you're saying, because I agree. This is not a topic that should be taken lightly. I think it is a topic of discussion that way too many people battle with. But I think that in and of itself, when you create the awareness to it, can really help, because you understand that, listen, guys, it's normal. A lot of people deal with anxiety on many forms and many variations. So when we start to have these conversations, and this is going to lead into the next question that I wanted to go into, Ron, because you mentioned how helpful it was to you to really get those words out. Now, to me, what it sounds like is these are thoughts that are stuck in your mind, and by putting them on the page, you're getting them out, so it's no longer in your head. Would the same thing apply? Would a similar thing apply for anybody else that has anxiety by just talking to someone that they feel close and comfortable with?
I think most of the time, maybe 98% of the time it does. Mm-hmm. But there's times when it gets so serious, like recent events, where I don't know if I could describe to someone what it's like to be stuck inside your own mind. And it's all very scary, and it's talking to you in a negative voice. You're not good enough. You'll never be good for anything. You can't do this. This isn't going to happen. People don't like you. On and on. It's just ridiculous, and that needs help. Medical help sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes just sitting down and telling someone who's experienced these things how you feel and what's going through, so they can counteract those voices. Right. Sometimes it takes medication. You know what? As long as we're talking about this, we're serious about it. I'm taking medication right now.
Ron, you're awesome, man. You are awesome. Can I just tell you how commendable what you're doing is? Because, guys, listen, we know people standing up and looking at ourselves in the mirror oftentimes is hard to do. To take it a step further and allow others to see inside of you and to see all of those cracks, to see all of those flaws. And I mean, let me not even say cracks or flaws, because that has such a negative connotation, but to see things about ourselves that we don't necessarily like. Man, the bravery that it takes, the courage that it takes is profound. What you're doing here is incredible, Ron. Thank you very much. And the fact that you went out there and put the pen. Listen, man, that's awesome. You're a great guy, man. Ron, this is fantastic. Listen, as we start to close out here, okay, because I can sit here, I can talk to you for hours. And I got to remember, Benji, this is not about you. This is about Ron. This is about Kathy. Keep it on them. So, as we start to close out of here, Ron, I know we've already covered this, but I feel like the message is so important, it's worth repeating. Ron, who is your intended audience, and what are you hoping to see them take from your book?
Generally, everybody. It's a fun read all the way around, whether you're suffering from anything or not. But I know that someone who's suffering from anxiety disorder will recognize every single part of that book. And it helps when you find out someone else thinks what I think, someone else knows and feels what I feel. They're the same as me. That's a huge help for everyone.
Last question here, Ron. Curiosity from myself. What's next for you, man? Is there another book on the horizon? What's upcoming?
I wrote a new book. We published it last year called Finding Wendy. It's a fun coming-of-age story with a twist. I'm working on a book right now about a mixed-race girl who grows up in the rural South and discovers the world through photography and her diary. So, again, both of those books touch on mental and emotional illness. I will always write about those things.
Love it. Write what you know. Write what you know. Write what you're passionate about. I love it. Guys, listen, I'm going to say it for you once again. I know I don't have to, but let's re-impress it, okay? We're here on the line with Ron and Kathy Kempton. We just finished discussing Ron's fantastic book, Child of the Heart. Guys, it's available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Make sure you're checking in there frequently. As he said, another book has already been released, another one on the horizon, and hopefully many more to come after that. You surely will not be disappointed. A wonderful education for you to receive, an even better gift for you to give to someone else. Head on over there, pick up your copies today. Guys, this has been truly a pleasure. Such an honor. I really do mean that. Ron, Kathy, thank you both once again for being guests with us on People of Distinction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come and be a guest with us on People of Distinction.